What catches you with this picture? We've had some interesting responses around the province. It's not suspension.
Eye on the ball.
Eye on the ball. Focus. Okay? This is what we're talking about when we speak to the OPDL. We need to increase standards in every facet of the game so we can produce more Christine Sinclairs, Diana Mathesons, Dwayne D. Rosario's, Atiba Hutchinsons more often. Ltpd is going to help us be able to do that, and the OPDL will be the platform for that. Until now, players that have made it to the national team or made it to professional football have really done it in spite of the system. So they've gone outside of the system to get to where they've got to. And that's not to say that some clubs or some coaches have been very influential in their development, but the system itself hasn't moved the players through from a club, to district, to regional, to provincial and up. These players have had to go outside the system to get to these places. And we can do better than that. And we're going to. And the OPDL has started that. What the OPDL will do is it'll provide coaches of the appropriate qualifications and experience around our talented players. It'll ensure that there's regular, meaningful competition. It'll ensure that there's a holistic environment where we're not just looking after the football side of things, we're looking after all four corners of the athlete. And it will provide a 12-month periodised calendar as well, which is something we haven't had. Again, these things from a few weeks back, and if there is ever a call to action, and we're not just doing this for Ontario, we're doing it for our country. Okay, we've got a significant amount of the country's population. It's really important that we do this for our country. Timeframes. February 2013 is when we'll have the final information that will be released to clubs. Final information packs about what this league will be, and standards will be finalised, and the cost analysis and everything else that you need to understand before making decisions. Applications will open in June 2013. They'll be open for about a month, and then we'll go through about a 3-month period where there'll be assessment and selection of the clubs that apply to enter this league, and there'll be final OSA board approval of the league and the teams within the league at the September board meeting. This league will kick off in April 2014 with the U13 males and females. 1 year group to start with, and then we're going to phase it in each year. I want to take a second to clarify a few things, and as I've said earlier, and please receive this message the right way, the OPDL isn't for everyone, okay? Just like the OYSL isn't for every club at the moment. What's really important is that clubs understand the resources they have and the means that they have and where they want to operate within the system. And they listen to their members and make informed decisions about the role they play. And every club is critical to our sport. Okay, and what's important is that we work collectively. And I'll speak to that more shortly. Pre-season, January to April, I'll run through this really quickly. We spoke to a lot of this back at the conference. Competitive season, April to November. Winter break, December to mid-January. And as I said before, we start with one age group, the 2001s, and then we collect another year group as we move through. Try that a second time. And clubs have a choice. You come in on a 2-year licence, so clubs coming in 2014 will be a licence for U13 and U14. Then we open applications again. So if clubs aren't at the start line here and not ready, they will still have a chance moving forward. It's not a league that's closed, and then it's not, those doors aren't opening again. It's important that we understand that. It is a club-based competition, so there's no district entry, and I want to take a second to understand this is a technical decision. There's a lot of consideration before making this decision. There's rationale behind it. If we look around the world, where does player development happen? Clubs and academies throughout the world. That's where player development happens. We're not too different here in Ontario. More often than not, that's where player development happens. Yes, we identify some and they come out into a regional program, or a district program, or a provincial program, but then they go back into their club environments. Okay? That's where our resources are as a membership, generally. The districts will play an important role in ensuring that their membership have representation, that the right discussions are happening, that there's a pathway for players within their district to this environment. So whether that means facilitating or guiding discussions about how there's representation, affiliation, amalgamation, other entities, those are things that need to be discussed. Okay, because the structure we've got hasn't been working. We need to force, that's probably too strong a word, but we need to ask serious questions of ourselves to do what's best for the player. It's really important that if the district was entering as well, it could be seen as limiting, because over time there could be more entry from a certain area. Okay, so if there's only one district team, then we could be limiting the amount of players that could have access to this environment. This will obviously mean a shift of district resources, and we're going to work with our districts as we make that transition. We'll see, at the moment, I think of our 21 districts, there's probably only 6 that have a form of technical resource. And of those 6, I think there's only a couple of full-time resources. Otherwise, we're talking about a part-time technical resource. It's so important that we hold on to those technical resources in districts. Okay, it's really important that districts go out there and try to get more technical resources on board. Those resources will change where they operate. So rather than working with the player as much as they have in the past through district programs, they'll start to work with coach education, succession planning and development around coaches, delivering coach education courses, still identifying players, but at a little tier lower, and ensuring that they're moving in the right direction. I'll talk to that more soon. Quick photo before I got here, my ear, and worked out quite well. So what are we hearing? We're hearing a lot in regard to the OPDL, and again, a lot of misinformation. So I want to take a second to clarify some misconceptions specifically relating to the OPDL. First one is coaching qualifications. As of December 2011, this is CSA information from their database. We had 27 CSA National A licenses here in Ontario, 132 CSA National B licenses, 15 UEFA B or higher, and that's through the Irish FA, primarily because it's very hard for our coaches to get into the English FA, or other countries aren't English speaking, so it's very hard to access that level of qualification. We haven't been able to get numbers from the US for the USSF B license. Okay, we know we've got a lot of coaches in our membership that have gone across the border and have that qualifications, which would be equivalent to a national B. So quite a significant number here. The other point that I will say is these numbers only take into account people that have had licenses from 2003 on. Okay, so the CSA records don't go back beyond 2003 when they made a transition to a new coaching pathway. So there will be coaches out there that have a National B or a National A before before 2003. They're still valid. Their current process of recertification is send your certificate in, it'll get a stamp, it's good for 5 more years. Be quick doing that, because that's going to change really quickly, where CSA will expect coaches to maintain licensing, to do professional development. I think it'll be a 4-year term where you need to either attend certain events or do some sort of refresher. So if there are people out there, make sure that is heard, but if there are certificates out there, get them to Ray Clark pretty quickly. Or, you know what? Don't get them to Ray Clark and come and do the work. It's probably more important. We stay in touch with the development that's going on. This year in Ontario, some really good things have happened. So our pre-B licence, we've delivered 18 pre-B licences in 2012. That's about 280 coaches through the pre-B. In 2011, we delivered 9 courses. Okay, so that's 100% growth, which is great. The Provincial B, we delivered 2 courses this year, roughly 62 coaches through that qualification, through that licence. In 2011, we delivered 1 with about 35. And it's even better, the news. We did have a success rate of about 45% on those licensed courses. That's increased to 60% this year. So that tells me a couple of things. One, that you, the clubs, are ensuring that your coaches are well prepared before they take that step to that license, so that support, that mentoring is improved, which is great. Okay, and 2, we've made some good changes to the delivery of the course to ensure it's more of a supportive learning environment as well. So this is great. People have seen some of the messages from the April 12 conference and they've promoted their people through the system. So great news. 2013, we, OSA, will deliver 3 provincial B licences. CSA will be delivering 3 national B licences. One of those national Bs will be here in Ontario. We're guaranteed a minimum of 12 coaches on that course. Talking to Ray, we usually have about 20 Ontario coaches go through this licence per year, so some obviously go to other provinces just due to work schedules and when they can get the time off. So I've made a prediction, a conservative prediction. Moving forward, we're going to have 10 new national B licence or higher each year. Remembering, I'm not even factoring in immigration and licences that will come from overseas, equivalency. Okay, so there's a lot of other factors there that will come into play. So when we transfer this to our OPDL and the forecast that we need as we move forward, this is an assumption. We all know what assumption means. Please don't leave this room thinking there's only going to be 20 clubs. Assumption. Assumption that we have 20 clubs for the sake of this exercise. So our requirement is 2 national B licences or higher in 2014. So you can see if a club chooses to progress, how that just multiplies. 2, 4, 6, 8. So if we had 20 OPDL clubs, this would be the requirement for national B or higher in its first year, through to 160 by 2017. And you can see here, with that conservative prediction, we've got more than enough national B or higher licences in Ontario. What we haven't done is overlay the location of where those licences are in regard to our land, our geography. Really hard to do that just because the addresses aren't that accurate, and we know how many times people shift since 2003. So that's something we'd like to do, but it's really hard to be accurate with that forecasting. So I just want to show the licences are here. The other big piece of information that we're hearing is the cost of a national B coach. And what I will say is, one thing I struggle a little bit with is the fact that people are challenging the fact that we've set a high coaching qualification. Because what that's telling me is people are stuck in comfort zones. They haven't been prepared to challenge themselves and move. And the system hasn't pushed them through the system. It hasn't given them that mentoring and support that we need to. So we've got to do a better job of that. Because guess what? Who's missing out? The players. All right? So if we move forward to national B coach, I've heard all sorts of things floating around. And I'm not saying the cost to do the licence. I'm saying the cost of a national B or higher licensed coach. When let's run through a few scenarios. In our current provincial program, we have primarily a national A licence or higher. We have a few national B licences. We pay the people in our provincial program, outside of our regional coaches, $500 a month to give their time to work with the talented player. Okay, so I just want to throw that out there. Our bigger clubs in the province, from some quick analysis we've done, $10,000 would be a cost for a national B or higher, and this is in our bigger clubs. The BC SPL, so they've just started a standards-based league this year, around about the $10,000 mark, national B or higher. I shouldn't use this example, but I will. When I was a high-performance manager at New Zealand Football, we were paying national coaches to coach under 17 men's and women's team, under 20 as well, $10,000 plus expenses for national teams. Okay, and then the New Zealand dollar's not that flash either. But I'm just trying to put things in perspective because there's a lot of misinformation circulating, and there's got to be variation and variety throughout the province for a number of reasons. Okay, compensation's going to vary. So a cost of a national B or higher coach here in Ontario, here in the GTA, will be different than Thunder Bay, Sudbury, Ottawa, okay, because of the local needs in the market. The coach themselves, whether they are an ex-national coach with a lot of experience or whether it's a new recruit that's just got their national B licence, that will be a determining factor. What that person's actually doing, are they just coaching one team? Or are they in a technical director, club head coach role, where they're actually working full-time in the club environment, looking after the implementation of the development and recreational matrices, having technical oversight at the different development stages in a full-time position within the club. Because that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to make sure that there's a career path within the game. We can have more of those people that are out in the business world wanting to work in soccer, earning their dollars, helping us provide that environment for the kids. We want there to be a professional career in our sport. We want there to be more opportunities for full-time profession. Okay, the financial position of a club will be another determining factor. So what I'm trying to say here is, don't listen to the noise. Don't listen to the noise. It's going to vary, and clubs need to make the right decision for them based on their environment. Some environments it might just be a contract. Okay, what we want to see is sustainability and professionalism with how we progress in this matter. Standards. Okay, we released these at the conference back in April. I'm not going to go through them line by line. I'm just going to touch on some of the areas that have been refined, so there's awareness of them. If you have questions at the end, this is where you feel free to shoot your hand up. Originally, in the technical criteria, we said the requirement would be 3 National B licenses or higher. It's actually 2 now. But what we are saying is that one of those National B licenses must be sidelined each game. Okay, so there is a stipulation there. We didn't speak to the requirement for assistant coach. The minimum requirement for assistant coach is to be registered to take the pre-B license in 2014. Obviously, we'd prefer coaches to have the pre-B license, but the minimum requirement is registration to take it in 2014. We've also said that it is mandatory that coaches, there must be a female member of the technical staff on the female side of the game, so whether that's as a head coach or assistant coach. Existing single gender clubs can enter the OPDL if they're an existing single gender club. And we've scaled back the player assessments. Originally we said 3 player assessments, now we're saying 2 written and 1 verbal. And there's some strong recommendations in those standards as well, things that we're encouraging clubs to do. So that's the technical side of things. When it comes to administrational standards, things haven't changed. What we spoke to at Soccer 12 was the current gold standard with club excellence would be what's required, and that is still the case. I say we're talking to governance and administration here. That information is just being captured in a similar format as the other documents for the OPDL. And finally, facility standards. We've provided more information there as well. And really, here we're just speaking to what is needed from a training and playing perspective, trying to provide more clarification. I think there is, don't get me wrong, we need to try and do everything we can to provide the best environment for the players. But we understand if we're providing a 12-month periodised calendar, at those few months at the start of the season, potentially at the end, while we'd like to see you in the right facilities, if it is a gymnasium, appropriate sized gymnasium for a small period of time, you know, we can live with that as we start to make those transitions. Just as an understanding of some of the costs that will be coming down to our member clubs as we move in this way. I'm just going to fly over a few other areas just to update you on, so you have a current update to where we are. We sent a survey out probably about 3 months back in regard to LTPD. One of the questions, a couple of the questions there related to the OPDL specifically. We've got an audience that said we're interested to receive more information about how that's progressing. Got about 50 or 60 clubs that expressed interest there. We haven't been too proactive in the advocacy that we've provided. We'll start to be a bit more proactive in that space next year once we have some of the information finalised to say, here is the final information, these are the things you should be thinking about. But we haven't been doing that at this point. We've been looking a lot into best practice. We've got meetings arranged for early next year with the US Development Academy League and some of their key personnel. We've been speaking to the BC SPL because they're obviously very similar culture. We're in the same country. And they have just moved forward with a standards-based league this year. So obviously they've been through this process. They're learning the teething problems. There's a lot that we can take from that. So we're in regular contact with BC. Hardship fund. We're really mindful that costs could be a barrier to getting some of the best talent in our province into these environments to progress their development. That's where some of the most gifted players are. We need to ensure we're providing opportunities for them to access this competition. We're working on a hardship fund. What we will do provincially, what we'll expect of clubs to ensure there are avenues and support for players that come from lower socio-economic backgrounds to ensure that they have access to this football and this development. There are progressive clubs out there. I'm sure many of you, there are clubs that took the messages from April 2012, have gone, they've been speaking at their board level. There's clubs talking about affiliation or mergers of some description. There's talks of new entities in places. We are arm's length from some of this. Our role provincially is making sure we put the platform there, that clubs need to know what they need to do to get there. We will give advice and guidance, but really it's up to our membership now to have the discussions they need to ensure that players have an opportunity within their regions. Financial analysis, really important piece of information that isn't here for you tonight. It should have been, it isn't. First, hold my hand up and apologise. But what I will say is that it will be available by February when we finalise this information. Very important piece of work. We've scoped it out. We know what we need to find out. We've got the resources to get it done. We just need to put a person to it. So we're in the process of identifying the right person to do that piece of work for us. We'll be making an appointment in regard to league management early next year. As you can see, this is new work for OSA on top of business as usual. So it's very important that we plan and prepare for this league properly. We're going to need more internal resources, and we'll be making an appointment very soon in the new year to pick up some of that accountability and workload. And as I said earlier, February will be when that final information is ready. So that's a flyover of the OPDL, which is the base of the new pathway as we move forward.